Next on the Professional Rule Breaker.
I'm Matt O'Neill from the Good Mood Revolution podcast. And I love listening to the Professional Rule Breaker because Kathy is the real deal. You will not find somebody who cares more about your advancement and your success. And this is one of the top podcasts in the world. I am a listener and a huge fan, and you should be too.
Well, welcome back to the Professional Rule Breaker Show. I am your host, Kathy Walterhouse. And of course, you know that here at the Professional Rule Breaker, we are all about helping you succeed. And we have this absolutely amazing guest that I think is going to make you smile today. He is a happiness expert and an entrepreneur whose work has positively impacted 100,000 lives worldwide. He's the author of the Good Mood Revolution book, as well as the podcast by the same name. And he teaches us that happiness is a choice, even when life gets tough. And I bet when business gets tough too. So I want to welcome my guest, Matt O'Neill.
What's up, Kathy?
Hey, so let's have some fun today.
Let's have some fun today. Absolutely. And we were just talking, I have that phrase on the wall of my office. Let's have fun today. It's actually on the wall of my house too, to remind my kids it's okay to have fun, even when you're doing your homework.
Absolutely. You know what? I think I'm going to add that as well to my office, because I've always, I don't know if you've heard me say this or not, but I always say, if it's not fun, why do it?
What's the point?
Right. Exactly. Why be miserable?
We don't have to. Suffering is completely optional.
Yeah.
Pain is not. We're all going to experience some type of pain, but the suffering is completely optional. And we know that this is true because some workouts that are crazy hard, like some really intense workouts that are kind of even painful. Mm-hmm. If we're with somebody that we really like and we're enduring it together, it can be really, really fun to exert a ton of energy. Or we could be doing a workout that's really tough and be resisting it and being like, oh, this sucks. When's it going to be over? Watching the clock, trying to get through it. So either way, the choice to have fun is a choice, and it's a choice that we make and no one else makes it for us. It's just us.
Yeah. You brought up a really good point that sometimes if we do things that are really hard, but we do it with other people that maybe also like having fun, I think it makes it go by so much easier and faster.
Yes. And I'm a big fan of your show. And I've been listening to episodes. And one of your guests, I think it was Barbara, was talking about how she sets an intention to love and have compassion every morning. I set this same intention to love the people I'm going to see today and have compassion. And that's because love is the essence of happiness. When we are full of self-love, we are fully confident in ourselves, because when we love ourselves, we do things that are good for us. We eat things that are good for us. We have integrity. We live by our values. When we don't love ourselves, we think that we're not worthy of love. We are upset about something. Then we do things to sabotage ourselves. And so when we sabotage ourselves, then we're upset with ourselves, and then we're not very happy. Same thing goes with other people. When we fully love other people, even when they're throwing a temper tantrum, and they're acting like my 3-year-old, and they're kicking and screaming and saying awful things, I can have so much compassion for this person who's in suffering. And when I'm loving other people, I am so happy, regardless of their mood. Their mood is their mood. What they say is what they say. How I feel about myself and how I feel about them is how happy I am.
So how do you make it so it's not contagious? Is it because you're full of that self-love? Because that there's times when, whether it's in the office, you got somebody that's really grumpy, or somebody that you encounter in the street that could just be, I'm not going to use the term that's coming to my head, but not very nice.
Yes. Yeah. And the terms that come to your head, these are all terms I have too. Sometimes they're spicy. Right? Like that's a good way to put it. My 11-year-old was very spicy this morning. And sometimes that can torpedo all of us. We've got 4 kids. My wife and I have 4 kids. My 11-year-old's my oldest, but it's 11 down to 3. And today she had that mood that I'm not happy and I want you to know it. And I'm going to be obstinate and I'm just going to see how I could torpedo the joy everyone's having, the fun everyone's having. And she didn't. So some days she does. And then today she didn't. And I was talking with my wife about it that on Thursday mornings, it's all dad. I make all the breakfasts, all the lunch. I take them to school. Thursday's all me, and I let Katie do her thing so she can get caught up on all the things that she does. And it didn't. And so I was actually riding my bike away from school because I love to ride bikes on my days.
Mhm.
And I dropped him off at school on bikes, and I'm riding back and I'm thinking, okay, I kept my light and my energy so high today that I was able to carry my vibration to my other children. And sure, my daughter's vibration was very low, very hurt, very upset. And yet my light was big enough that it was able to sustain the joy. That doesn't always happen. So a lot of this about how to not get torpedoed, how to not have our energy taken from us is so much work. We have to work on our own light so much that we're emanating such a great bright light that the darkness comes and it just vanishes. And what happens to the dark if we turn on the light? It disappears.
Mm.
So the darkness isn't even real. And this is what I teach too, is that all the bad mood emotions, all the fear, the anger, the disgust, the shame, the guilt, the judgment, the criticism, all of that's darkness. It's darkness of the ego. It's all unreal. It's not even real. It's all lies. And when we're believing the lies of the ego, we suffer. And it's contagious. It can be. So that darkness can spread and it can be contagious. But when it encounters bright light, it disappears. And so the first step is we need to identify the darkness within us and find those points of unconscious upset, these 8 bad moods. There's only 8 negative moods. We need to find them within us and then shine the light of our consciousness on them. And as we shine the light of our consciousness on each unreal thought, on each negative thought that isn't even real, it dissolves. And then they keep coming up and we keep dissolving them. And that's how eventually we can become somebody that's so light that we can carry that light throughout all interactions.
So I have so many questions here. So how do you do that though? So how do you shine the light, whether you've been torpedoed by somebody that was in a really bad mood or for whatever reason, whether it's you're having a moment of self-sabotage or victimhood or whatever it is, how do you change? I mean, I know in my viewpoint, you can change it in an instant, like in the snap of a finger. But how do you suggest for the people that are out there listening, how do you shine that light? How do you get to that point? Hey there, I am all about making a big difference. So I am so excited about announcing our podcast sponsor for today. They are the very last U.S. family owned manufacturer of consumer goods products. And best of all, their products are healthier and safer for you and just really amazing quality. And I can do all the things that I do if I really wasn't health conscious. So this is very near and dear to my heart because they are healthier and safer for you. And best of all, they will not break the bank. So if you're interested in finding out more information and switching your shopping to something that is non-toxic and healthier for you, go to switchaway.com/rule breaker and one of my friends will reach out to you. And just let's work all together to see if we can make an impact and switch to healthier and safer products. And of course, supporting small businesses. So again, drop your information at switchaway.com/rule breaker.
Well, the first thing is that any negativity that comes up is coming up for a reason
Mm.
to be healed. And it's actually our gift. And so every time we get into a bad mood, every time we lose our joy, we lose our love, we lose our light, every single time, it's our opportunity to heal a misunderstanding that we had implanted in our subconscious at an earlier age. Most of the programs and the beliefs we have, we programmed when we were 5 or 4 or 13. And so a negative event happened for me. My dad was not a super cool guy and then abandons me as a child. And my mom was a single mom, a secretary with 4 kids. And it was hard. It was a super big struggle. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of feelings that I wasn't good enough, that, hey, I didn't deserve a dad. I don't deserve to be loved. I don't deserve to be cared for. And I started to make decisions like that. In my head, I started to say, well, I obviously don't deserve a dad.
Wow.
That wasn't true. I was a sweet little 5-year-old boy,
Hmm.
but the life circumstance and then me, I made a decision. I'm a being, right? So nobody said you don't deserve a dad, but the circumstance then had me say, I don't deserve protection.
Wow. That brings tears to my eye. Like literally, I'm fighting back.
But this is what we all do.
Hmm.
We all have a tough situation and everyone has their own situation. Maybe it's we've got friends and then they turn their back on us for some reason. And then we're like, oh wow, okay, maybe I'm not that lovable. Maybe I'm not that likable. Maybe I'm not that cool. Whatever the thought comes in, and then this becomes a subconscious belief, and we can have our whole life run by these subconscious beliefs that a 5-year-old mind made up. And if we never go in and find them, which they're all untrue, every single negative thought is an untrue belief. If we don't go find them, they'll just run us. And so for me, what I did, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm not enough, if I don't deserve a dad, I'll prove to the world I do. And I realized that when I did really well in school, people praised me. And so then I did really well in school. And then when I did really, I'm like, okay, well, now I'll do really well in my career. And so when I did really well in my career, people praised me. And I was building this big business. We became one of the fastest growing companies in the country. And I was doing it all to prove that I was lovable and that I was enough. And I was being run by this program. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'll get the biggest house. I'll get the nicest cars. I'll have the prettiest family. I'll put all the perfect pictures online. And then everyone will know that I'm finally enough. And I did all of that, but I still didn't know it myself. And so my negative feelings were still there and they would still come up and life circumstances would happen. Somebody would do something. They would decide to leave my company, for instance. And as they left, the wound was so heavy of my dad leaving when I was 5 that one person leaving my company, I had 100 people that worked for me. One person leaving would just open that raw wound and I would just fall apart. Like I'm unlovable. I'm not enough to be stayed with. Meanwhile, 99 people are staying.
Yeah. It
One person's
triggered.
leaving.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
triggered those emotions.
And so this is my story, but if you're listening, you have a story. And every trigger, every time you fall in to this triggered state, that is your wound coming up and it's your opportunity. It's like when your heart breaks, it doesn't break, it breaks open.
Mhm.
And we get to look inside and see what's in there. And then we invite it to come out. And then we say, okay, I see you. I see what's going on here. And now you're just begging me to heal you. And how do we do it? How do we heal it? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to find it. And it's so easy. The subconscious is so easy. When I was growing up, computers just had a C prompt. You remember the big
Oh,
computer?
yeah.
And it
Oh,
just
yeah.
had a
I
C
remember that.
prompt and you'd put in a floppy disk or a hard disk and then you would write some type of command and then the computer would give you an answer. That's the same way the subconscious works. You just have to ask it a question. And so the question to ask is, from the painful experiences that I had in my past, what did I believe about myself?
Mm,
What words did I come to say about myself? And these will start with I am. There'll be I statements. I don't deserve a dad. I am unlovable. I'm unworthy. I'm unlucky. I deserve punishment. These were my I statements. Once we identify them, these are the lies in our subconscious.
mhm.
These lies that are in our subconscious are creating all of our triggers. Then we just need to draw a line down our paper and right next to each lie, write the truth. And the truth is so much more powerful. So just exposing it, just rooting up these lies and seeing them, all of a sudden they lose a lot of power.
Mhm.
because now we have a conscious awareness of them. They love to hide in the shadows, right? They love when we don't look at them, but when we pull them up and we look at them, they start to lose some power. And then the counter to that, I'm unlovable, is I am lovable.
Mhm.
I'm unworthy, I'm worthy. I'm unlucky, I'm blessed, right?
So let me
And then we just want to program these new thoughts,
the
and
new
we just program
thoughts.
with repetition.
I'm sorry to interrupt because I just wanted to ask you, what if, because I have an exercise that is similar to that. So, what a couple of folks have told me is that they have a hard time believing. So, if it's, I don't know, I'm just going to grab something. I am not capable or something like that. Or I am stupid. Let's do that. That's a little more direct. I am stupid. And then it should be, I am smart. I am whatever. And they don't believe it.
Mhm.
So, what do you think the holdup is there?
Yeah, because we've been telling ourselves this lie for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
Because there's a big thing in
how,
business about the imposter
uh-huh,
syndrome. They have a dream, they want to do something, and they're really good at what it is that they want to do and they want to share, but they don't believe.
right. Totally. Absolutely. That's the whole like life cycle of an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
is that we have the fear, what if I can't do it? And what if I fail? And then if I fail, what does that mean about me? And I don't know if I have this stuff, or if I'm going to put myself at risk or my family at risk. And then we have to be bold and brave and believe enough in ourselves to take that first step. But we're teaching right now how to believe in ourselves. And so I love the example you gave. I am stupid. I hear this from people a lot that I work with. And that is so easy, right? You get some problems wrong on a math test. A teacher says something offhanded. "Oh, I
Yeah.
can't believe you got that one wrong. Like,
Mhm.
you're better than this, you know this, or whatever." Or some kid looks at our score on our test and is, "You're stupid." And then we're like, "I'm stupid." And we believe it. And then we collect all this evidence. And the evidence that gets collected, because the next time we have a test, we get a C. And then we're like, "Well, I guess it's just because I'm stupid. I don't get it." And then more evidence and more evidence. And then we mess something up, or we lose something. We lose like something we care about. We're like, "Well, I guess I lost that because I'm just so stupid. I can't think about like where my things are." And so we have this belief we created, and then we collected all this evidence for 40 years. I'll put it a different way, because this is an easier way to understand it. If we spent 40 years with bad eating habits and no exercise habits, and we put on an extra 100 pounds, and then we're like, "Okay, well, I'm going to eat healthy and I'm going to exercise for 4 days. I'm going to do 4 days. I'm going to get put in 4 days of good effort." And at the end of 4 days, we're still 100 pounds overweight. We would say, "I guess this exercise and eating thing doesn't work." No, we'd be like, "It takes more time than four
Takes more
days.
time. Absolutely.
Right. And so that's the same thing with these unconscious limiting beliefs. If we've had a limiting belief for 40 years or
Mm.
30 years or 50 years that I'm stupid, and we've collected 40 years of evidence, because whatever we believe, we have to find. That's just how it works. And we could believe the exact opposite thing. We could believe I'm smart or I'm intelligent, and I could collect evidence in the exact same 40-year time span. I could omit all the things that I do stupid and only focus on the things that I did smartly. And there's all the evidence to support that you're smart, but because you believe that you're stupid. So now all we have to do is spend more than 4 days. So at first, when we're exercising and we're 100 pounds overweight, we feel like an imposter. We go to the gym and we get on the treadmill and we're like, "I don't belong here. I don't fit in. Everybody's so fit, but I'm going to stick with it." And then we stick with it. And then maybe 2 weeks later, we're like, "I'm starting to feel a little more energy." And then a month later, we start to know the person at the front desk and we have friends at the gym. And then 3 months later, we're a regular. And then 6 months later, we're down like 5 pounds and we're like, "I'm there." And then 12 months later, we've lost like 20 pounds and we're starting to look like the best we've ever looked and feel the best we've ever felt. And now that's exactly the way it works with these limiting beliefs. So if we want happiness, it takes work. If we want to suffer, it takes no work and no effort. We can continue to suffer, and that's the way that everyone does it. But if the rule breakers, the professional rule breakers, are the ones that say, "I don't want what everyone else has. I'm
Right.
willing to put in the effort to have the body I want, the life I want, and the happiness I want." And happiness just takes work.
Yeah. Do you think that it is easier to be unhappy then and inflict all this pain on yourself because it's almost like the collective society does that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's easier to be out of shape and it's easier to be unhappy. It takes no effort to judge, blame, condemn, and criticize. It takes no effort to judge, blame, condemn, and criticize others. It takes no effort to judge, blame, and condemn and criticize ourselves. It takes tremendous effort to love and have compassion for somebody that's in suffering and projecting their suffering onto us. It takes a tremendous amount of effort to love ourselves and have compassion for ourselves, even though we make mistakes and we're not perfect, to understand that we're doing our best and to give ourselves the love and nurturing that a great parent would give us. It takes a lot of effort to do that, but man, is it worth it.
Yeah.
It's like, same thing with, I love this idea of getting in shape. It's so worth it to have all the energy and to feel sexy and to feel confident, right? It's so worth it. You're like, yeah, of course it's worth it. Now that I've done it, it's worth it. Well, it's the same thing with happiness. Yeah, it takes a lot of work, but oh my gosh, is it worth it to feel freaking amazing every day and make everyone you touch feel amazing and to make your wake? Like literally, when we feel great, we leave a wake of
Mhm.
eternal love. I affect this person who then affects that person who then affects that person. And it ripples on through eternity to their children, to their grandchildren, to their great grandchildren. It is an eternal wake of love that we can put in action just because we changed and healed ourselves. And that is so cool.
Oh my gosh. You have no idea how much I love that. I'm all about the ripple effect. It's usually how I end my podcast talking about the ripple effect. So I am so happy that you brought that up because I feel that even if you affect one person, you have accomplished something really amazing.
Absolutely. And it's the only work that matters. I only want to do things that have an eternal impact.
Mhm.
And affecting the life of one person in a positive way has an eternal ripple effect. Making a little bit more money for myself, that is not eternal.
Mhm.
Anything selfish is not eternal. I'll spend the money, the house will disintegrate one day, the whole earth will be engulfed by the sun one day. But things that have eternal impact is one soul connecting with another soul. And what we don't want, and so sometimes fear is a good motivator too, what we don't want is to have a wake where we just put our trauma onto others
Mhm.
and then they put the trauma that we put onto them onto others, and then they put the trauma that they put onto them onto others, and we can have a negative eternal impact as well. And think about the cascading negative effects if we don't do this work.
So let me ask you, because we all know people, whether it's in the workplace, somebody could be a coworker or a vendor or friend or whomever it could be. We all know those people that spend a lot of time in that negativity. Is there a way to help them? I mean, obviously, we can shine the light on them, we can love them, but is there a way to kind of, I guess, point them in the right direction? It's kind of like the same thing with these entrepreneurs that might have the imposter syndrome, especially. It's what's really funny about imposter syndrome is that the more high achieving you are, the greater chance you have imposter syndrome, which is just kind of a strange thing. But is there a way to, I guess, help people? I mean,
No,
well, no. Other than
no,
maybe listening to your
there,
podcast or my podcast, but
there, there's not. There's not. We have one person that we can help,
yeah.
and it's ourselves. And I want to be the example. I want to be who I would want you to become. And just by being it, just when I was in high school, I wasn't a very happy kid. Again, it was a troubled childhood. And there was this older gentleman. I remember this day so clearly. He was standing outside of the gym of my high school and he was saying hi to the kids and he was saying good game and all, like his light was so bright. And I remember walking by this guy and I didn't even say anything to him. I just saw like how he was affecting everyone around him. And I thought, that's the coolest guy I've ever seen. I would love to be like that one day. Now, he can't go to a troubled teen and say, you need to be better. You can be different. Each person has to choose it.
Mhm.
So it's like when the student's ready, the teacher appears. I can't determine when somebody's ready to let go of the darkness. And there's nothing wrong with it either. There's nothing wrong with somebody muddling through the darkness. Absolutely not.
It's
They're,
a learning. I think you learn a lot through
they're
that, but you don't want to
totally.
stay there.
But they're, so it's this, I want to save them from it. There's nothing to save them from. Sometimes they need to spend a whole lifetime
Hmm.
muddling through the dark and seeing the pain that it causes and the pain that it causes themselves and others, to wake up to it and to say, I can do better next time. And it's, if we have a view of eternity, and eternity is a long time. It's not 100 years. It's
It's
not a
forever.
1,000 years. It's not 1,000,000 years. It is eternal, right? If we have eternity, and like a belief in eternity is a really great thing to foster, then spending a single lifetime, which is a blink of an eye,
Hmm.
experimenting with what it feels like to be in pain and suffering because we're choosing it, that's part of the process. And every single soul goes through that part of the process. It's the only way we can have compassion for someone who's now suffering, is to say, actually, I've been that way. I've been mean. I've been rude. I've been a jerk. I've harmed other people. I know how painful it was that I felt inside and what I did to them. And now I see you trying to do it to me. I know you're so down. I can't kick you when you're down. I can just try to love you. Now, you may, if I try to give you advice, of course, you'll kick even harder. So that's not, my role isn't to give you advice. My role is to be who I am. It's shine my light. And if you want help, you'll come and ask. And if you don't come and ask, that's fine too. I just know you still need your time of suffering to learn.
Hmm. Absolutely. There were a couple of things that you said that I think are really important, that you have a choice. And I think if you realize that, whatever it is in your life, because I think anybody can have a choice to be happy or unhappy. They have a choice to continue a path of thinking, depending on, like in your case, you didn't have a father and you thought you were unworthy. There's other cases of people that are abused and they continue that same abuse cycle. You have that choice to break that cycle. Or if you grow up and you're really, really poor, you really, and here, we're so lucky here in the States, you have a choice that you can do things potentially. Obviously, there's some limitations out there, but that you can change that as well too. You can have a life of abundance, and abundance means a lot of different things. So I love that you brought that up, that there is that choice. And the other thing is, as far as your life here, is just really just a blink of an eye. I was listening yesterday for some reason to Deepak Chopra. I was doing a meditation, and that's one of the things he said. He says a lifetime is just like a streak of light, like a flash of lightning. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting way to think about it. But you can even just think about how quickly does your life go by? And so, do you really want to be unhappy?
No, that's such an interesting point too, about a lot of times past trauma and past hurt. And we're like, I
Mhm.
can't forgive that. Well, if this is true, if our life is just like a streak of lightning, I've another thing I've heard is that it's like our soul taking a breath in
Hmm.
and taking a breath out. And
Yeah.
that's one lifetime. And then and then another breath in and another breath out. So then the past is our teacher, but it's just a wisp of smoke. It's gone.
Hmm.
And if I'm going to continue to be traumatized by something that happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and not let it go, I'm carrying into the only moment that is the present negativity that is already just disappeared. It's not even real anymore. But I love to use the past instead of to bring trauma forward, to bring confidence forward. And one of
Yes.
the things I love to do is to count all the ways we were talking about, that I believe I'm stupid, and we can collect lots of evidence for it. And then also, if we want to change that belief, we have to collect evidence. So I was saying earlier, we want to create the new beliefs that are counters to our trauma, and then we need to repeat them every day, just like we've been repeating the old beliefs, but we repeat the new beliefs every day. You can write them down. You could just read them out loud. You could record your own voice and play that recording while you take a shower every day, just something that's repeating this new belief. But what I do to take another step forward is I write evidence.
Hmm.
So I have my new beliefs. And then if my new belief was I'm smart, once a week, I go write a sentence about one instance I was smart this week. And so I'm consciously creating exactly the way I created the old negative belief, the new way, where I have the new belief, I'm repeating it every day, and then I'm finding a piece of evidence every week to say, you know what, that is right. I
Mhm.
didn't have confidence I could be an entrepreneur. I didn't have confidence I could go create this new business. I'm going to start to collect evidence that I do. Oh man, this person told me that I could go start my own thing. This person told me that I was good enough I could do it. This person just told me I need to do it. And why am I still in this job? I've got all this evidence of other people believing in me. Maybe it's time for me to believe in myself. And so the evidence collecting piece is a very fun piece. It's a very fun way to grow our confidence and do what we really are supposed to be doing.
I think it's a great way to celebrate too, as well. I think, and when you're celebrating, you're almost anchoring the good feelings, the good evidence.
Mhm.
Because I think it's, especially in the business world, a lot of times people don't see how far they've come
Right.
because they're in this moment. Maybe they're struggling at this moment. But if they were to look back and
Mhm.
collect that same evidence of all the amazing things that they've done and how far they've gone and celebrate it. So it's the
We
same thing.
we do this and it takes rituals and systems. So I have a ritual and system for this with my team. I have a ritual and system for it for my life. And I love it. Easy ritual to take on. Every single meeting, even if it's just one-on-one, somebody needs to ask me something. I start with what's going great.
Mm.
Before I train anyone, I say, give me your wins. What's the greatest thing that's happened to you this past week? Personal or professional, it doesn't matter. Just give me a win. And sometimes people are like, I can't think of any. And I'm like, great, we're going to wait. I'll wait. I have time. And what I'm doing is I'm having them collect evidence that things are going great. Because usually we come to somebody with a problem and our focus is everything that's not going great.
Yep.
But I want to get us into a solution mindset. And high vibrations have so much creativity. When we're in the highest vibrations of what's going great, we can always see more things that are going great. We see problems as actually opportunities. And so I always, this is a super easy ritual for business, is to start every meeting with what's going great. And I'll have every person give me one thing that's going great, and me too. And I give something that's going great. So that's a business ritual. Once a quarter, we have a quarterly planning session. Before we go into our quarterly planning day, we all go to lunch. And at lunch, the only thing we do is we talk about all the wins our team had over the last 90 days. And so each person gets a turn and just says all the things they remember that went so well the last 90 days. And the lunch is amazing. And we start to just, we're like, wow, we are winning all the time. We get done with lunch and we're like, I can't believe we did that much in just 90 days. It's like crazy. Look how great we are. And then we go and we have a company address. And at the company address, we take all the wins from our executive team and we read it in front of the whole company. Look at what we have accomplished as a team in 90 days. Oh my gosh. And so these are very simple rituals to put into business of how we collect evidence that we're doing well. Success builds on success, failure builds on failure.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't consciously collect the evidence that we're doing great and that we're winning, our mind always points out where we're losing. It says, you said that wrong. You should have said this. I can't believe you did that. That was so embarrassing. Oh my God. And it'll just, in our mind, just keeps bringing up all the stuff we're doing wrong. And so if I don't counter it with what am I doing right, I'll think everything's going wrong.
Yep.
And then law of attraction, if I think everything's going wrong and I
You'll
believe
get more.
everything, I get more going wrong. So law of attraction, if I think I'm always winning, I start to win.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a super easy, but I do it in my life too. So every single morning I collect evidence of what I did right yesterday. It doesn't take long. It's a ritual that's changed my life. But every day I write down three things that went well yesterday. And then every week I read through those three things and I say, what were the five things that were like amazing this week?
Mm-hmm.
And I look at this list of five things. I'm like, I did that in 7 days. Crazy. And then I say, if building on that, what could I possibly do this coming week?
Yeah.
And then, and this is how we've accomplished all that we've accomplished. Our company was named the number one place to work out of 470,000 businesses in the state of South Carolina.
Wow. That's amazing. That's really amazing. I do think what you focus on in life makes a huge difference. So you can focus on something that is negative, or you can focus on something that's positive and maybe will provide growth. And it's so interesting that you mentioned the law of attraction as well. Because again, I think if you have that light, and granted, things don't always go your way, and that's okay because they're all learning experiences.
But they do. Kathy, you just said it.
Yeah.
Everything always goes your way. This is a profound understanding.
Mhm.
Everything is grace.
Yep.
Absolutely everything is happening for your benefit in the long run.
Yep.
And it doesn't go the way that you wanted it to in this moment, but it is going your way in the long run. And given a long enough time frame, we can look back and say, I needed that.
You needed that because it was there for a purpose.
Yes.
It was there to help you learn, to pivot, to think differently, whatever it was there for a purpose. And you have a choice, right? I always say that these challenges or things in your life that may appear to be negative, you have a choice. You can either use it to make yourself stronger and going in the right direction, or you can use it the opposite way. You have that choice to keep on like moving forward and learning and making whatever pivots, and I guess handling it with some grace as well, I think is important.
One way takes effort and one way takes no effort.
That's right.
This is just the crux of all of it. The choice always comes down to,
Hmm.
am I going to put in the effort to be happy today? Or am I going to let the negativity of the mind win? And for me, it's just no longer a choice. It's the negativity of the mind is there. It doesn't ever go away. You could be an enlightened master. I just spent a weekend with Eckhart Tolle,
Oh, did
and
you? Oh, wow.
Eckhart was diagnosed with cancer a couple of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and he's an enlightened master.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's the real legit deal. Like he's legit. And he got scared
Mm-hmm.
and he was upset and he thought this shouldn't be happening. And so even if we spend all of our time meditating and understanding the power of now and being in presence and having this beautiful, loving mission in life, something's going to happen and we still have a human ego that's, I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
That shouldn't be happening. I don't like it. And so, you know what Eckhart had to do? He had to go to the doctor and he had to say, I want to live. And he had to take the treatments and he did a lot of visualization and meditation and he visualized healthy cells and he used all the powers of manifestation that we all know. He visualized a healthy body. He said healthy mantras. He said affirmations of health and he went to the doctor and he's cancer free now. But that challenge, what was that challenge for? He had a lesson there, right? He had a lesson that he kind of thought, and this was an admission he made. He said, I thought cancer couldn't come for me because my thinking was so pure and my presence was so pure. And I didn't have these negative thoughts that manifest cancer. And so his lesson was, no, you're actually a human and you're not a spirit. You're like, you're living
You're
on the
not
earth.
infallible. Yeah.
Yeah, you're living on the earth plane and humans have pain, but suffering again is optional. And so the pain showed up, the suffering was there because he's a real human and we all are. And something bad happens, like we get a diagnosis or someone we love does, or we lose our job or the economy changes or a rule changes and now all of our business starts to disappear. And we're like, I don't want this to be happening. This shouldn't be happening. Well, it happened. And now saying it shouldn't happen and resisting it and wishing it didn't is suffering.
Yep.
As soon as we move into acceptance, I fully accept this is happening. I accept it. I accept I got this diagnosis. Now, what can I do about it? What positive step of action can I take? What are the steps I can do today to improve my situation? As soon as we go into acceptance and then we say, how can I make the best of this situation? How can I make the best of my life right now? This happened. I know I didn't want it to, but I accept that it did. What, from this moment forward, what can I do to make my life the best it can be? I talk about this in my book. This is the good mood of responsibility,
Mm.
where life happens. And whatever happens, even if it happens to us, right? Eckhart didn't think cancer into his body. He got cancer. It happened to him. but he is now responsible for this has happened, but what it's now my responsibility to handle it in the best way I can. And as soon as we start to take responsibility, everything gets better.
That is that's pretty amazing. That's a really great story. Because I think for him also, it's a great teaching. It's an example. He led by example as well, too. And so I really love that because I think everybody faces challenges, whether it's health or something else. Let me ask you a question because I saw something that you had posted about money mindset. Again, I know that's a habit or a thought that probably came from when we were younger, right? In many cases. So let's talk about that. How can we, I guess, have a happy money mindset?
Yeah, money is just like anything. It's just like health. We have money habits, and in all they are, everything is created by thought. Every single thing is created by thought. I was reading a book this morning, and it said the universe is thought.
Hmm.
Everything is thought, it's consciousness. And it used a lot of science to talk about how the universe is thought. It talked about the water studies that Emoto did in Japan, where our thoughts change the molecules of water from hateful thoughts make really dark looking molecules and loving thoughts make really beautiful molecules. So our thoughts affect the world, but all matter is just thought. Another way of saying it is everything's energy and thought is energy. So E equals MC squared, right? So money is the same way. So whatever we think manifests. Crazy, crazy. Stephen Hawking said, there's a quote from him in this book, and he said, "It is absolutely certain that everything in existence exploded out of nothing." In the Bible, it says God made everything from nothing. At first, there was the Word, and the Word was God. So it was just God, and then everything was made out of God. Well, was it made out of? It was made out of God's thought. He thought it or spoke it, and it was all created from nothing. So if we're made in the image of God, and then that means whatever we think or speak just gets created out of nothing. Science says everything was created from nothing. And God says everything was created from nothing. And the law of attraction says we just create things from nothing. This is not, everything is magic, nothing's logical. So when we have a thought that money's hard to come by, or money doesn't grow on trees, or I don't deserve wealth, or whatever this thought is, whatever we think, we create out of nothing. But we can totally change that thought and we can say, money comes to me easily and frequently. Or we could say, I see abundance wherever I look. And if we repeat that thought enough, and it's always repetition and the strength of emotion behind it and the positive visualization. And we just say all these beautiful money things, like I have avalanches of abundance showering over me at all times. And if we just are constantly thinking that, what happens is out of nothing, all this abundance starts to shower on us from nowhere. And it's, wow, this is amazing. Well, I was using the power of manifestation to manifest all these things. And I was like, I'm going to earn this amount, and then I'm going to double it, and then I'm going to double it, and I'm going to double it. And I was manifesting tremendous amounts of money and still am, thankfully. And I wasn't manifesting happiness at the same time. So a happy money mindset is a little different than just manifestation. So Hitler used manifestation.
Mm.
He did. He
Yeah,
used
you can use it for a good or evil.
yes. And so if we're manifesting in a selfish way or in a way trying to overcome our trauma, which was me, I'm not enough, so I have to manifest success to prove I'm enough, then it's not actually going to be a happy manifestation. We want to manifest because it's fun to create. It's fun to have abundance. It's fun to have freedom and creativity and like lots of ability to be who we want to be and give what we want to give. And then also at the same time, it's the happiness comes from knowing we already have everything we need.
Mm.
And gratitude is the other piece of a happy money mindset of I have everything I need right now. And this is a gratitude practice, and we cannot overdo gratitude. I love to give simple, practical things that our audience can take away and to implement right now. Very simple way for gratitude. Before you eat anything, say thanks.
Mm.
When I
Mhm.
was growing up, we said a prayer of gratitude before we ate dinner. with my children now, we say a prayer of gratitude. We say, thank you for this food. Thank you, God. Thank you for today. Thank you for all the things you did today. Thank you for our family being here. Thank you for us all being healthy. We just say thank you at dinner. Well, now silently, before I eat lunch, I say thank you. And then before I eat my protein shake in the morning, I say, oh, thank you for this protein shake. And so 3 times a day, I'm saying thank you. And this attitude of gratitude creates happy money mindset where we can go manifest, but we also know I don't need it. I have it all.
I absolutely love that. So tell me, Matt, where can people find you? Actually, before we do that, I want to ask you this question because I know that you're one, but what makes you a rule breaker?
I have always been. I was in so much trouble as a kid. I believed that I didn't think the rules that my elders and teachers and caretakers put in place made any sense. I didn't think that the rules that my religion put in place made any sense. I was constantly questioning everything. Like, why does that make sense? Why would 2/3 of the world have to burn forever because they don't believe what we believe? This doesn't make sense. As a little kid, I'm saying this, I
Mhm.
don't know. I can't fit in your box.
Yeah.
And I would write sentences after sentences about because I couldn't fit in boxes. And then I would just say, no, I'm not going to write sentences. There was one night I was at my caretaker's house until 10 o'clock at night because I just refused. I'm like, I won't. I don't think this is right. What your rule wasn't right. I broke it because it's not a right rule. And your sentences, now your punishment isn't right. And what are you going to do about it? Okay, spanking's great. Let's spank. And I have always just had an internal compass that has guided me. And when something doesn't make sense, I just do what does make sense for
Mhm.
me. And that what ends up happening. And so I love when I see a child that is obstinate and the parents are like exasperated. They're like, I don't know what to do with this one. And I can't control them. And I'm like, that you nurture that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
You nurture their boldness because that boldness could change the world. And if you try to stifle the boldness, you could put out a beautiful flame that could ignite such good things. So what we want to do when we find someone who's very bold is we want to point them in the right direction with good values and
Mhm.
say, hey, you're smart. You're seeing things in a really smart way. Let's just make sure we're guiding you in the light. And so, but that,
Absolutely.
yeah, for me, and then I go and I'm like, okay, well, now if I can just break every rule and I don't have to fit by any norm, as long as I'm doing things that are good for me and good for the world, everything's unlimited. I truly believe this. Any thought I get, any vision I have, no matter how big, and any vision you have, Kathy, any vision our listener has, if that vision is in your mind, God is saying that is a possibility for you.
Yeah.
That is possible. He wouldn't give you a vision if it wasn't a possibility. And that is why I'm a rule breaker, is I'm like, everyone else can say, you can't do that. And I'm like, but I can see it. And if I can see it, then it's possible.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so great. And I totally agree with you. It's so interesting because you were talking about seeing children that might be obstinate or whatever, that type of thing. When I see that, and I've seen it in my own children, my thought is, I know that they're always going to be okay because they got that will that they can't be conquered.
I can tell just a quick story, just a really quick
Yes,
story about
yes.
this. My 9-year-old Cameron is when she was 3, she is so determined, this little kid. And it's so interesting how we come in, but again, eternity, right? So she's already has her own history. This
Yeah.
soul comes in and into my care, and she's chosen to come into my care. It's an honor to raise her this time. 3 years old, she says, Daddy, will you teach me how to ride my bike? And it's 120 degrees in Charleston, South Carolina on a July 30th day. And I'm like, Cam, no. She goes and she sits in the street, sits in the street. And I go out there and I'm like, and I'm just sweats just pouring off of me. And she's 3. I'm like, 3-year-olds can't ride a bike. Like she's so small, like just barely out of diapers. And I'm like, Cam, come on in. We'll start riding your bike another day. And as a one rule breaker to another, I'm like, respect. I'm like, all right. I go get my toolbox. I take her training wheels off. She gets up on that bike, and damn it if she doesn't ride that thing 200 yards before she runs into a trash can. And I'm like running after her, and I'm like, and I get to her and she's told you.
Hey, that one is going to change the world.
She is something else. She has got a determination in her. It is crazy. There's a 10K in Charleston, and she was 7 a couple of years ago, and she's like, Dad, I want to run over this big bridge. There's 40,000 person race. And I'm like, all right, Cam, let's do it. She'd never run 6.25 miles. And I'm like, I'll run with you. And I said, all right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go really slow. And I just want to see if we can just make it the whole way without stopping. And she's 7, right? Just a little kid. Well, she ends up running this whole race, and we're like getting the last mile. She's, Dad, we got to pick it up. And I'm like, all right, Cam. And so we start running. She's sprinting by the end of this thing. She in the 10 and under category, so kids that are 8, 9, and 10 years older than her, she came in second out of all the children in that whole race. And it is really fun to nurture that type of determination and put it into a good direction. But that was kind of how I was growing up too. I was very determined. I was going to do things. It's when a parent though, or an elder says, I'm determined you do it my way.
Mm-hmm.
And if a smart child is, that doesn't make sense to me, the parent should then say, well, let's talk about it. And that's how I want to be as a parent. Hey, if Cameron comes to me and says, Dad, that doesn't make sense to me, I'm going to say, talk with me about it. Because as a rule breaker, I want to kind of nurture that.
Yeah.
I want to nurture what is it? How is it that you're seeing it? And then, all right, let's try it your way.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's
there's a
ride the
vision
bike.
attached to it as well. It's not just being so determined, but you have this vision. And again, just as long as it's something that is helpful to the world and helpful to yourself,
Think about it,
nothing
3.
wrong, I guess
Think
is what
about
I'm
it,
trying to
3.
say.
At 3, she had a vision. She was going to get on that bike and ride it.
Yeah.
She had no evidence other than a vision in her head that she could ride that bike. To my dismay, to me thinking you're going to hurt yourself, she had this vision, and thankfully I allowed her to enact it, and it worked. And then everyone, like the whole neighborhood, they would see this little tiny like toddler riding this bike without, they were like, what is she doing? I'm like,
Yeah.
she's special.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So Matt, tell me, where can people find you?
I love to talk about happiness. And my first thing is, Kathy, I'm a huge fan of your podcast. I
Thank
am
you.
such a big fan. You are the real deal. You've got one of the top podcasts in the whole world. But if your listeners are looking for another podcast to add, The Good Mood Revolution, we talk about how to be happy every week. And that's the best place to plug in.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to get yourself a new listener in me.
Oh, great. I love it.
I definitely am a fan of you, especially after this interview. And I'm going to be listening to your podcast. And I encourage all the listeners out there to do the same. And we'll have your other, like your social media and all that in our show notes. And again, I highly encourage everyone, check Matt O'Neill out and check out his book, The Good Mood Revolution. And for everybody that's out there listening, again, I'm all about the ripple effect. So if you are determined and you have a vision, just think about the ripple effect that you can create, even if you just help one person. It's like throwing that stone into a stream and watching the ripple effect. So everybody out there, go out there, be fierce. I love this unconquerable spirit that you're talking about your daughter, Matt. Be just like, is it Cameron or Cam?
Both.
Be like Cam. Maybe that should be a new tagline. Be like Cam and have a vision and go out there. And of course, break some rules. And again, I want to thank my guest, Matt O'Neill. I'm grateful to have you here.
Same. Thank you so much.